I was hanging out by the cake table when my niece Lily, who just turned 11, started peeling the plastic off the iPhone I'd gotten her. She let out a little laugh, her hands moving so carefully over the box, like she was afraid it might break. Then she looked at me and said, "Mom says if you disappeared tomorrow no one would even notice." She tossed it out there like it was a joke, but there was a sharpness to it hidden under that sweet teenage voice. All around the room people were laughing, 30 voices, all relaxed and careless. My sister Megan, Lily's mom, didn't even bother to look up from her wine. She was sprawled out on the couch, one leg crossed over the other, wearing this smug little grin, the kind you get when everything's going exactly the way you planned. My mom was in the kitchen stirring a pot of something she'd never actually eat. She didn't say a word, but I saw her shoulders lift just a bit, a move I recognized right away. That was her way of saying she approved. My dad was in his old armchair by the sliding doors, not even pretending to care. He lifted his beer and said, "Well, she's not wrong," with a chuckle. "That's just how my family is. They don't shout to hurt you, they laugh." Uncle Dennis snorted into his napkin. My cousin Erin, who once borrowed money for a dental emergency and never paid me back, clapped her hands like Lily had just nailed a joke on late-night TV. Me? I just stood there, same as always. I was the one who bought the phone, the one who covered the school fees last fall when Megan forgot, the one who set up the Netflix account because Mom couldn't figure out the TV. I was the one who always showed up. And now, apparently, I was also the one nobody would miss. Lily looked up at me, her eyes big and innocent, still smiling. "Thanks for the phone, Aunt Sam." I swallowed and gave her a nod. "My name's Samian. Samian Brooks. I'm 38, old enough to know when you're not really wanted in a room, even if you're the one paying for everything." I didn't say anything. I just pulled out my phone. 2 taps and the utilities were off. Streaming services? Cancelled. Shared phone line? Gone. Mortgage autopay? Stopped. Just like that, I vanished. Nobody noticed. And that was the last free thing they ever got from me. I didn't stick around for the cake. They were lighting the candles when I grabbed my coat from the hook by the laundry room and slipped outside. Nobody followed. Nobody even looked up. The cold air hit my throat. January in Minnesota has a way of making you feel the silence, the kind of cold that sneaks under your collar and makes you hunch your shoulders without thinking. I didn't go straight home. Not right away. I drove to my apartment on the other side of town, a 3rd-floor walk-up with lousy insulation and no elevator. I'd been there 7 years, long enough for the carpet to remember my footsteps, but that night it felt like a waiting room, not really mine anymore. I took off my shoes at the door, not out of habit but because it felt final. There was no hurry. I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things like women do in the movies. I made myself some tea. Then I opened the closet and pulled down an old black backpack I hadn't touched since college, nylon faded, zipper stiff, but it still worked. I packed it slowly. A folder with copies of utility bills I'd paid, a thumb drive labeled Family Records in my handwriting, the prepaid tuition slips from Lily's school, a photo of me and Grandma Ruth back when her hands still worked and she could beat me at Scrabble, and finally, folded up small, a legal document, a quitclaim deed, signed and notarized, giving me full ownership of Grandma's lake house, dated 6 months before she passed. They didn't know about it. Megan still talked about the house like it was hers. "The kids love summers up there," she'd say. "We might fix it up one day." I never corrected her. Back then I thought it was easier to let them believe what they wanted. But now the house was mine and I was done explaining myself. I zipped up the backpack and set it by the door. I packed a second, smaller overnight bag, just the basics. A change of clothes, toothbrush, phone charger, flashlight. Then I sat for a long time. The apartment hummed like always. The fridge running, traffic outside, the heater clicking even though it never really worked. Nothing dramatic, just life quietly turning away. At 2:13 a.m. I stood up, slung both bags over my shoulder and turned off the lights. No note. No goodbye. I drove across the city in the dark. Their neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that comes from never having to worry about next month's bills. They never had to worry because I always took care of it. Till now. I walked up to my mom's house as quietly as I could, like a thief. Only I wasn't stealing, I was giving something back. I left the backpack at the bottom of the stairs, where they'd be sure to find it in the morning. Then I left. Really left. By the time they opened it, I was already out of state, already on my way to take back what they never realized they'd lost. People say systems fall apart slowly, then all at once. By 7:41 a.m., Megan had called my phone 4 times. By 8:12 my mom texted, "Something's wrong with the Wi-Fi. Can you check?" By 8:26, my dad's pharmacy app wouldn't refill his prescription. And by 9 the thermostat clicked off and the house went cold. I didn't answer any of them. Instead I sat in a diner 2 towns over, sipping black coffee that tasted like burnt pennies, watching the parking lot fill up with sleepy cars. By noon the silence broke. Megan again, this time from a different number. "Samian, what the hell is going on?" Mom's freaking out, Dad's yelling, "The utilities are all screwed up, the cable's down, Lily has an online test this week and the internet's just gone." I let it ring. Then another message, "Was this your way of punishing us? Seriously, grow up." I smiled, not because it was funny but because that panic was something I knew all too well. I'd just never been allowed to let anyone else feel it. At 2:37 in the afternoon I got an email from the mortgage company. The subject line read, "Auto payment cancelled. Past due status warning." That was a first for them. They'd never seen that message before because I always made sure to forward it to myself and handle it quietly. Then at 4:12 my mom sent a text, "Samian, your father is very upset. I don't know what you think you're doing. This family is falling apart." Falling apart, now that was something coming from her. For 2 decades, I'd watched her clutch her wine glass tighter than she ever held me. Every time Megan messed up or made a new disaster, Mom would say, "She's just figuring things out. You're the stable one, Samian. Thank God for you." It was never real gratitude, just her way of passing the job off to me. I'd finally decided I was done being the one to pick up the slack. At 6:45 someone pounded on my apartment door, 3 sharp, impatient knocks. I didn't budge. Then came fists, harder this time. "Samian, open this goddamn door." My dad's voice. He hadn't set foot in my place in 5 years, not since I moved out to give Megan space after her divorce, when she moved back in with our parents, her kid, and a mountain of debt. I stood behind the door, quiet as drywall. "You think you can just cut us off? You think this makes you powerful?" The doorknob rattled, then went still. "We raised you. You owe us. You're not better than this family. You're just a bitter little girl with a paycheck." He waited. I waited longer. Eventually I heard him mutter something, maybe my name, maybe a curse, and then his footsteps faded, slower than when he'd arrived. I went back to the table, the same one where I'd spent Thanksgiving alone 2 years ago, because we're doing a smaller family dinner this year, just Megan and the kids. That's what they always called it, smaller, whenever I wasn't invited. I made myself some pasta, opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for no one in particular. By 10 Megan was on Facebook posting about her utilities being hacked. A cousin chimed in, "Isn't Sam your IT sister? Maybe she can fix it all." Megan didn't answer. The next morning I woke up to 26 missed calls, 7 from Mom, 9 from Megan, 3 from Lily. The last message just said, "There's a black bag by the stairs. Was that you?" I didn't reply. She was the one who said I could disappear and nobody would notice. Now they couldn't stop looking for me. They opened the bag together. My mom told the story later to a neighbor, I think. I wasn't there, but I can picture it. The bag sat by the stairs for a day and a half, untouched. They figured it was something Lily left behind, or maybe a donation drop-off from one of Megan's friends. Nobody thought of me. Not until the water was completely shut off. Not until Megan's new husband had to shower at the gym because the pipes were ice cold. That's when they finally opened it. Black nylon, stiff zipper, nothing special, the kind of bag you ignore for years in a closet thinking it's just full of junk. But inside I'd packed everything they'd managed to forget. The first thing my mom pulled out was a folder. Inside were printed PDFs of the last 4 years of utility bills, each one marked with a yellow sticky note. Paid by V. Brooks, electric, gas, trash, cable, pest control. Next came my dad's pharmacy receipts, co-pays, delivery fees, emergency in-person refills. I never told them I was the one reactivating his account every time he forgot the password. He always thought the system just remembered. Then there were 2 school tuition invoices for Lily's private arts academy. Megan always claimed they had a scholarship. Maybe partial, but the rest? That came from my account, same routing number every time. Folded in with the papers was a grocery list, not mine but my mom's. I'd found it in her handwriting years ago. On the back I'd written, "Everything here paid for 11/23. You told me not to tell Dad you forgot the card again." Then there was the flash drive. I don't know how long they waited before plugging it in. Maybe they thought it was a virus. Maybe they hoped it was empty. But it wasn't. Inside were 4 folders, audio documents, screenshots, Ruth. Ruth was Grandma. I'd saved every voicemail she ever left me. There weren't many, but the last one was just before her stroke. Her voice was shaky but clear. "Samian, sweetheart, I signed the papers. The house is yours. I know they won't like it. I don't care. You're the only one who showed up. Keep it quiet until you need it." Then she laughed, low and dry. "Lord, they'll hate this." Good. There was also a scanned PDF of the quitclaim deed, signed by Ruth Brooks, notarized, stamped, filed in my name, full ownership of the lake house in Cedar County. The same house Megan redecorated last year without asking. The one my dad still called our family's legacy. I imagine they sat there stunned after that. Because after all the bills, all the names, all the yellow sticky notes, all the voicemails and screenshots of Megan calling me a paycheck in a pantsuit, after all that there was one last thing. A photo. It was old and faded, me and Grandma Ruth on the porch swing at the lake house. I must have been about 13. She was holding my hand. On the back, in shaky blue ink, she was the only one who ever remembered my birthday. She'd written, "Samian deserves something that lasts." I wasn't there when they found it, but I hope just once they took the time to read it slowly. Because that was the only goodbye I left. And it wasn't for them. It was from her. He reached out like nothing had happened. No apology, no explanation, just a one-line text. Section 112G, game night. Let's talk. I read it 3 times before setting my phone down. He still thought this was something we could negotiate. But I agreed to meet because by then he'd seen the backpack and I knew he'd at least skimmed what was inside. The stadium was packed. You could smell metal, melting snow, and mustard, the kind of noise that comes from people needing something to yell about, not the game itself. I spotted him right away, Frank Brooks, my father, sitting exactly where he said he'd be, holding the black backpack on his lap like it was either a prize or a threat. He looked older than I remembered, like a man trying to defend a past he couldn't afford to have questioned. I sat down 2 seats away, not right next to him, just close enough so he'd know I wasn't hiding. He didn't bother with a hello, just grinned like he was the one offering me a second chance. He tapped the bag with his hand. He called it our little time bomb, said it wouldn't stand up, that nobody would believe a stack of bills, a voicemail from a dead woman, and a property deed she probably never meant to sign. He spoke fast and sharp, like a man who knew his argument was falling apart but needed to keep talking to feel in control. I watched him. His knuckles were white. The corner of his mouth twitched, caught between bravado and something closer to fear. He kept trying to laugh, but nothing was funny. He told me I was cruel, that I'd embarrassed the family, that people saw the video, the backpack, the bills, the recording, and thought I was out for revenge. He said Mom cried, that Megan wasn't sleeping, that Lily had to answer questions at school. And finally he looked at me and asked, "What do you want?" I turned to face him, taking in the crowd around us. The noise was just a blur. Vendors shouting about popcorn, fans yelling at the refs, laughter that didn't belong to either of us. I kept quiet because he already knew what I wanted. He just didn't want to admit it. He was still clinging to control, to the story, to how things looked. But the thing about paperwork is, it doesn't twist the truth the way people do. I stood up. He reached for my sleeve, but I shook him off, not rough, just enough to make it clear. I walked up 1 row, then turned to look at him. He flinched like he thought I was about to make a scene, but I didn't need to raise my voice. "My name is Samian Brooks," I said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, "and for 20 years I kept this family running. Not because anyone asked, but because nobody ever thought I'd say no." Heads turned. A woman near the aisle leaned over and whispered, "Isn't that the Brooks girl?" Kept going. I paid the power bills, the school fees, the hospital debt, the groceries. And when I finally stopped, they said I was the one who left them behind. I held up the folder, the same one I'd packed that night before I walked out. The light caught the seal on the deed. Someone behind me snapped a picture. "This is the deed to the Brooks Lake House, signed by my grandmother 6 months before she died. She gave it to me because I was the only one who stayed when she couldn't walk anymore." My dad tried to cut in something about legacy, inheritance, misunderstanding, but I didn't let him finish. "You always told me I was lucky you raised me. But the truth is you never did. I raised myself. And then I carried all of you." I stepped forward and dropped the folder at his feet. "You don't have to like it, but you can't lie about it anymore." Then I walked up the stairs, past rows of strangers who'd gone quiet. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. And for the first time I wasn't running from a fight. I was leaving the part they'd written for me and closing the door behind me. They didn't call that night, but by morning my phone was lighting up 27 missed calls. Megan, Mom, even one from Lily. Then the messages started. First came the blame. Megan said I'd humiliated the family, that Lily was crying, that nobody online understood the real story. She said I'd used the truth as a weapon, like that was somehow worse than hiding it. Then came the guilt. Mom left a voicemail, her voice soft and careful, the way she always sounded when she wanted something but didn't want to ask outright. Samian, please. This isn't who we are. We're a family. We just need to sit down, talk. Your father's quiet, Megan's upset. I miss you. I listened once, then deleted it. That was as much grace as I had left to give. By the afternoon the story had changed again. Someone must have recorded what happened at the stadium, maybe a neighbor, maybe just someone with their phone out, ready for drama. It started making the rounds online. No names, just the voice of a daughter, calm and steady, listing every bill she'd ever paid for people who now acted like she didn't exist. I didn't share it, but I didn't have to. The truth has a way of getting around on its own. That night Lily sent me a voice message, just one line, quiet and shaky. I didn't mean it. I didn't know it would matter. She didn't say what it was, the party, the words, the look she gave me, but for once she said my name like it meant something. I didn't reply, not because I was angry but because I was done. 3 days later someone forwarded me a screenshot, a Facebook post. My mom standing next to Megan and Lily, smiling like heartbreak had made her stronger. The caption read, "Sometimes families go through hard seasons but love finds its way. We believe in forgiveness even when it's not returned." Underneath, "You're such a strong mama. Proud of how you're handling this with class. Family always wins. Narrative reclaimed. History rewritten." I didn't answer. I didn't correct them because the truth wasn't something I needed to drag back into their house. I'd already left it at their feet. Later that week I sat at my kitchen table barefoot, a mug of tea cooling in my hands. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet you earn. No buzzing texts, no just checking in voicemails with guilt hidden inside. Then one last message from my dad. 5 words, "You'll regret this." "We won't." I let the screen go dark. Then I opened my settings and blocked his number, then Megan's, then Mom's. Not out of spite, not to punish anyone, but because this time silence wasn't giving up. It was a choice, and for once I was the one making it. The lake house was smaller than I remembered, paint peeling around the windows, gutters hanging loose, the porch swing long gone. But it was still here, still standing just like me. The deed had been filed weeks ago, quietly, legally, for good. The county recorder asked if I wanted to notify my family. I shook my head. They'll figure it out. Inside, the place smelled like dust and river air. Grandma's old floral couch was still there, faded by the sun but stubborn as ever. The upstairs bathroom had a slow leak. The guest room was a mess of half-finished summer projects, most of them Megan's. I boxed up what didn't belong, left the rest alone. Some things aren't meant to be cleaned up, just cleared out. On the kitchen table I set down one thing. The photo of me and Grandma Ruth, the same one from the backpack. Her handwriting on the back was fading, but I didn't need the ink to remember. Samian deserves something that lasts. Outside, the lake moved slow and wide, like it always had, like it didn't care who claimed to own it. I stood on the porch steps with a mug of coffee and nothing in my inbox, no calls, no requests, no emergencies. Just the cold air, the wood under my feet, and the kind of quiet that lets you breathe deeper, not the kind that makes you feel small. I didn't post about the house. I didn't tell anyone I'd arrived. But I updated my address, because sometimes you don't have to burn your old life down. Sometimes you just stop picking up when it calls and move into the one that was always waiting for you.